Thank you. That's fine. Hand it to her. She'll hold a mic.
Okay, I'm going to follow Rick's advice and tell you right off the bat. SusanAnders.com is my website. If you can't remember that, SusanSing.com will get you right to my teaching page. And so as Rick said, I'm going to talk about a couple of things today and then open it up for questions, and you can ask me anything about singing, and if I don't know the answer, I will make something up. But first I want to talk about preparing yourself for going on tour. Obviously, being on tour is very, very hard on the voice. You are staying in overly air-conditioned hotels, you're not getting enough sleep, you're using your voice a lot, you're probably not eating very well, you might pick up the bug that's going around the tour bus. It's very hard on the body, and anything hard on the body is going to be hard on your voice. So there are some things to do to prepare. What I often do with artists before a tour is assume that that tour is going to be hard on them and work them pretty darn hard. I often distinguish between a vocal warm-up and a workout. A workout would be where you are pushing the envelope vocally, safely, to get good belt technique, build your range, build your volume, just working fairly intensely. Then when I send artists out on the road, I send them out with an easy-peasy warm-up, something really easy that just gets their voice going, nothing intense. I'm just assuming that they're not going to sleep well, they're going to be working in arduous conditions. So I just want them to have a very, very easy warm-up. I'm going to talk a little bit later more about warming up, so that's what I do on the warm-up end of things. Okay, let's talk hydration. I saw an artist a couple of weeks ago, Jamie N. Commons, at 3rd and Lindsley. He was on the 30th of a 30-day tour, rocker. He was quite good. And I was talking to him afterwards, and I said, okay, tell me the deal. What do you do? How did you do this? And he said, I'm all about hydration. I'm all about hydration. And he knew you drink gobs and gobs of water. You undoubtedly know this. The water doesn't go to your vocal cords. There's a little valve. It doesn't get there. You have to drink a great deal of water to get moisture to the tissue. I had a student when I lived in Los Angeles. I had to send her to the voice doctor because her voice just kept drying out. He had her drinking 2 gallons of water a day. She was working in an overly air-conditioned office. That did the trick. So, water, water, water. Anyway, back to Jamie N. Commons. He said he would get into his hotel room and go and turn on the shower and just blast it so there was steam everywhere. Now, I cannot tell you to do that. That's just too ungreen and not ecologically sound. So what you need to do is, besides drinking lots of water, get a nice travel humidifier. They're small, and get and run that thing every night. When you get into the hotel room, turn the air down, if not off. Get used to being warmer. Wear those nice dresses like these 2 women are wearing. Get used to being warmer. In Japan, they've got the office workers, they are setting the thermostats at 82 degrees in offices to save energy. That's actually what I do in the summer. I try and hang out at that, not when students are around. You do not, vocal cords like to be warm and they want to be moist. And air conditioning is cold and it's drying. So you want to minimize the use of that. If it's got to be on, like here, then you drink lots of water and you get your travel humidifier. There are also these little, I think they are for your complexion, little face masks that steam, that are also quite portable. Those work. In a pinch, you can just have a steamy cup of herbal tea and inhale the steam. While I'm on that subject of easing the dry throats, lozenges, you know, lots of sugar is not good for you, but sugar lozenges, they're not so bad in terms of the throat. They can be soothing. And there are lots of sprays out there. Try and avoid the ones that have alcohol in them because they are going to dry your throat as well. Avoid anything like chloroseptic sprays or lozenges that numb the throat. You can sing and do damage to your vocal cords and not realize it because you are numbed out. So even if you have a sore throat, try not to do that. There are soothing things, lozenges, those are okay, but not the real numbing things. You need to avoid those. Okay, the other thing you need to do preparing for touring is basically become your own research scientist about you as a singer. And you need to find out what really, really helps you on tour to get your voice going, besides your warm-up, of course, and what you might need to give up. And that actually varies from person to person. So you may be someone that really needs a lot of sleep, and so you may need to give up those late night hangs after the show. You may need, I have a touring singer-songwriter friend who needs to run before the gig, and sometimes it's around the parking lot a few times. So you need to figure out exactly what gets you in good vocal shape. It could be yoga, it could be stretching out, it could be meditating, it could be prayer, it could be calling home and talking to family, but it's finding those things that get you in the good place for your performance and making time for it. Then you have to figure out the things that are not good for you and give them up while you're on tour and tell yourself that when you get back home you can have them again. And let me run through a few possibilities and then you get to try all of these things. Now, let me tell you the standard one, dairy. That's a standard. Here I'm going to name drop for a second. Hillary Scott studied with me before Lady Antebellum, and she was being pitched to labels, and she came in and she just had the worst allergies, really, really bad. And I said, you know, a lot of people with pollen allergies have food allergies, and dairy is really common. Just give up dairy for a few days. And she came back the next week, and she was 90% better. So it's a huge, huge difference. So dairy is a common one. You may need to give it up for the duration of the tour. The good thing about these things that you can try is that you will know pretty quickly if it helps you. You'd know probably in 3 days if you go off dairy, if you are less gunky, if you're singing better. Some other things that you may need to think, well, alcohol, if you are drinking age, of course it's very drying to the throat. Coffee, I gave up coffee 20 years ago. I discovered if I drank coffee and sang, I lost my voice, so I gave it up. Let's see. Things with bubbles in them. I love fizzy water. Right before the gig, you may burp. That's not a good thing. And so I would avoid that a good hour or so before the gig. Overly spicy, irritating foods could be irritating. Citrus. Citrus is interesting because I'm sure you've read at some point, well, if you're sick, you need honey and lemon. And honey, I think, is fine. It's soothing. I worry about citrus. Citrus is very drying. I would just avoid it. If you want something in your water, hot water, some fruit juice, non-citrus fruit juice. That would be a good thing to drink. Herb teas. You've got also, sorry about this, while you're being a research scientist, you've got to check out your herbal teas and make sure they're okay for you. There are some people with ragweed allergies sometimes react to peppermint tea. So you need to run through several, find the one you like, add that, throw that in the suitcase. Let me think what else on the food end of things. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Vocal cords like to be warm. Ice. Ice is not good. Get used to room temperature water. Warm water is better, but you know, it's the summer. It's going to get hot pretty soon. So try room temperature. Just try not to have everything really, really cold. That's not going to be good for the throat. You may see artists with scarves around their necks in July, in August. There's nothing wrong with that. That's keeping the vocal cords warm. And you know, you walk into the sound check and it can be cold. It's cold in here right now. That is hard on the vocal cords. Turtlenecks, scarves, all of that will keep your vocal cords warm. You want to baby that voice when you're out there, because it's not just like you're going out and doing one showcase or a recording session and you can sleep it off and recover for a few days. You're going out day after day. So, now I want to jump over to warming up, because I started with talking about warming up. And I've had it on the brain for several months. I've been writing a new warm-up that I will be selling through my website. So I've been thinking about it a great deal. So I just want to talk about the who, what, when, where, why, how of warming up. And so who needs to warm up? Pretty much everyone. I know one singer who doesn't warm up, and she's quite good, and she gets away with it. She does do 15 minutes of breathing exercises every day before she sings, but she doesn't warm up. Everyone else, I think they need to warm up. And why do we need to warm up? Because our vocal cords, we speak in a range of about a sixth. We sing in a much bigger range than that. And we're not going to cover that range just from talking, unless we talk like this all day long, and we don't. When we're singing, we have to hit specific notes. We have to sustain them. It's much more rigorous to sing than to speak. So warming up does a couple of important things. It prepares your voice for the rigors of singing. It helps you segue into that. And it reinstills good vocal habits. Because when we sing a song, songs can be emotional. And we'll get into it, and we could stress out and tense up, and all our good vocal habits go away. It's easier with a warm-up, which tends to be a little bit easier, to get all the good vocal habits happening. And you need to do that every day. Muscles, the vocal cords are a muscle. Muscles atrophy begin to atrophy after 24 hours of non-use. So you've got to use them, hopefully correctly, every day. You need to warm up every day unless you are really sick. I did have a voice teacher years ago who said, you warm up every day unless you have strep throat. I don't buy that. If it really, really hurts to vocalize, you may need to rest your voice that day. If you have a mild cold, sometimes warming up can get you right out of it so that it feels better to sing. Okay, so where was I? I had the who. I've been talking about why. When do you warm up? You can warm up in the morning and be good to go for the rest of the day. So it's not like you have to warm up right before the gig. You can warm up in the morning as long as you don't take a nap or go outside and yell at the traffic. You should be fine. You might want to do some nice stretchy things right before the gig, get your breathing going. But that should do it. Where to warm up? I have a lot of students that warm up in the car, driving places. And I do the same thing sometimes. That's not the greatest thing to do. If you are going to do that because you have the time then and it gets the job done, try and intersperse some standing up warm-up. It's easier to breathe correctly standing up. You're undoubtedly going to be doing some gigs standing up. So do some of your warming up standing up as well. Probably at home in front of a mirror so you can look and see what you're doing and making sure that you're doing everything right. When, what, how long? Oh, this is a good one. Rick was saying 2 minutes. Actually, 12 minutes. 12 minutes a day should do the job if you're doing the right warm-up. So it's not like you have to warm up for an hour. 12 minutes you can talk yourself into doing of the right exercises. So I think that's kind of a happy thing. Now, I'm older. I think 20 minutes is great for me. But I think, you know, up into 20-something, 30-somethings, 12 minutes a day should do the trick. How long? I was using this to help myself remember all these things I wanted to talk about. So, who, what, how to talk about what, when, where, why, what and how. What I want you all to do for me right now is hum for a second, and that would be this. Okay? So, some of you may have felt tingling in your face. Some of you may not have. Now that I'm mentioning tingling, we're going to do it again just so you can see if you feel some tingling. So that tingling in your face is resonance. And resonance is what you are shooting for when you're warming up. It is your guiding light. When you're singing, I'm going to tell you things you probably know already. The air comes from your lungs, the diaphragm pushes against the lungs, the air comes, passes through your vocal cords. As the air passes through your vocal cords, that sets up a vibration. The vibration comes and resonates in your sinus cavity, your mouth, on out to the world. So, if you are doing everything right, singing, speaking, high notes, low notes, loud notes, soft notes, you should feel a whole lot of resonance here and not a lot in your throat, which seems kind of counterintuitive since your vocal cords are in your throat. If you sing with your hand against your larynx, yes, you're going to feel vibration. But if you're doing everything right, if you're not tensing your throat up, if you're doing everything right, you should feel a lot of resonance in your head. Now, men may also feel chest resonance. That's absolutely fine. But I think you want to focus on that facial resonance because that is the sign that your vocal cords can move freely. You're not straining to push the sound out. So resonance is what you're searching for when you're warming up. And there are certain sounds that get that resonance going. Humming is the simplest one. That's why I had you all do it. And when you're warming up, you do various exercises with very resonant sounds. And then you cover more and more difficult exercises, more and more range. And you move from those super resonant sounds to less resonant sounds, trying to get facial resonance with those as well, basically preparing you to sing. Now, why am I not talking about these sounds? The sounds can vary from singer to singer. That's what is a little weird. As the warm-up that I've been working on, I give the singers some choices of sounds because whoa, whoa, whoa might be the magic bullet for you, and it might be ma, 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 and it might be why. It actually varies from singer to singer. So once again, it's something you work out with your voice coach, but it's also something as you are your own little singing research scientist, you're going to experiment with as you're warming up. You could go to a voice coach and get a lot of exercises and take note after you do one with, whoa, wow, I feel much more resonant. That feels much, much better. You do want to watch for those because those are the ones you're going to pull out at the last minute when you have overslept, took your nap right before the gig and you're racing off there and you need to do something kind of quick and dirty to get the voice going. Go to your go-to sound, whatever that is, And they don't have, you don't have to do scales. You could whoa, 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 whoa. I like scales. They're systematic. They're nice for warming up. I had students years ago who said to me, they said, I will not do scales, figure out some other way for me to warm up. So I have them do warm-up sounds over very easy songs. And then I would up the ante and do slightly harder songs. I actually sell a couple of methods now that use this method. So it can be done that you do songs, use songs as your warm-up, using warm-up sounds. That can work as well. And I wanted, I already talked about humming as a nice quick warm-up. I wanted to talk about a couple of other ones. You may know them already. They're also really great to do in the car on the way to the gig or the writing appointment or whatever when you're in a hurry and you don't have your warm-up CD with you. By the way, get your warm-up CD and make several copies of it, or put it on your phone, but make copies of it anyway in case you lose your phone. It's because you don't want to lose that warm-up. And get an easy warm-up and get a hard warm-up. Okay, so besides humming, something else that you can do is our tongue rolls. Now, some people can do tongue rolls and some can't. And I have been told by linguists that anyone can learn to roll their tongue. And I don't believe it. I think it will torment you. If you can't roll your tongue, don't bother. However, if you can, it's a great, great little warm-up trick. It loosens up the throat. If you have allergies or crud on your vocal cords, it helps to loosen that and clear things out. So you can just... I saw a friend of mine a couple of years ago who is a always touring the world, singer-songwriter, very, very good singer, and I hadn't heard her for a while, and she had gotten a whole bunch better. And I said, okay, what have you been doing? She had been living in Australia in a town where she didn't know anybody, and all she did was stay home playing guitar scales all day long, and she said, yeah, and I was doing tongue rolls along with all the scales. And that was what got her voice better. I thought, okay, different ways to improve the voice. The third one that is handy are lip rolls, and those are often easier for singers, so that would be and sometimes this is easier to do if you can't do them easily. I'm going to put the mic down and show you. Doing that. So just a finger on either side of the mouth. And some people call it motor boning. That loosens the mouth, gets some vibration into your face, can also promote facial resonance. So that is a good, quick little trick. You can do those over scales. I do them over scales every morning. And that's actually the first thing a lot of voice coaches have you do. Tongue rolls and lip rolls and humming over scales, and then moving to the other vowels. I think I'm out of things to say, so in case you walked in, I'm Susan Anders, susananders.com, and so do any of you have any questions? Yes?
This is purely out of curiosity. Good question.
Repeat the questions
Oh.
for those that can't hear it.
She asked what I recommend for heavy metal singers. Basically, what I've been talking about, except even more intensely. I've found when I've worked with intense rock singers that have come in with a lot of voice problems, that what we're doing with warm-ups is not close to really preparing them for what they're doing. And but I have to do it safe for their voice and very, very slowly build the habits and the strength to meet in the middle. But I read a book where somebody interviewed a bunch of heavy metal singers, and it was fascinating because the bulk of them were kind of what I've been saying to you. They were all scientists about what worked for their voice. And one of the most interesting things that people said was, one guy was saying, you're not going to see six-packs on heavy metal singers because they can't breathe deeply enough. They need such good breath support. If their abs are too tensed up, they get a big, strong six-pack, it doesn't work for them. They need to be able to breathe better. So you're going to be more barrel-chested when you're a heavy metal singer. Yeah, it's like opera singing. Questions? Yeah, Bill.
What's a juice that doesn't have acid in it? You mentioned fruit juices without acid.
Good question.
Like an
Fruit
apple juice?
juices without acid in it. I'm thinking cherry juice, peach, apple, anything like that. I think pineapple juice is okay. I don't know, to tell you the truth.
Google.
I actually don't. Google that. But everything, experiment. Yeah, Natty.
Before a show, what type of breathing exercises do you recommend? You said other people will do that in addition to.
Right. Yeah, I didn't get into breathing today. And it's funny, my brain immediately went to yoga because yoga postures will stretch you out. Yoga's really good for singing because you tend to have good singer's posture when you're doing yoga. You're stretched out, and they encourage you to breathe very deeply. So finding a couple of good yoga postures is good. On the other hand, when we're standing up, we can tense up a little bit in our diaphragm. And there are a couple of things you can do, especially if you're all amped up before the gig and nervous. One is actually just to slump out like this, which I call the gorilla, which relaxes all of these muscles, and it can be easier to relax and get a nice deep breath. So that can be helpful right before the gig. The other thing that I like before the gig is what I call the ha exercise. Now, I tend to get nervous before gigs, and so a lot of us, when we get nervous, we tense up right in our diaphragms. Not so great when you're trying to get a good deep breath before you sing. So the ha exercise is this overworking of the muscle like this. Ha, 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 ha. Now, what isn't good about that is that that's some extra air passing over my vocal cords. It could dry them out right before the gig. That's not great. It's actually good to do this in the bathroom when you're taking your shower, so there's steam going. But that vigorous moving of the abdomen can be very relaxing. So then you can get a deep breath again. Questions? Yeah?
Okay, this is actually good or not. Also in minis, it's put one in my lip and it makes you salivate more. So if you struggle with dryness,
That's a great question. Yeah, something that would make you salivate more. I don't know.
I have to say it, I'm not sure.
I don't think there's any problem that has sugar in it. You can't have them if you're a vegetarian.
Artificial sweeteners too.
Yeah, and artificial sweeteners. I don't eat sugar, so I have these, no sugar lozenges, and they seem to work just fine too. But I think they'd be fine. Yeah, that makes sense, actually. No, I don't see why that would be a problem. It's just those numbing things you want to watch out for. Yeah. Yes.
What about oregano oil?
Oregano oil for fighting off colds is, if you get me started on all the things that I think of for fighting off colds, that's one of them. And yes, I have a girlfriend who absolutely swears by it. And find the stuff that I found, you put it kind of inside your nose if you are around anyone who's sick. The stuff I found, and I've gone through a couple different brands, burns like crazy. So there must be some easier form of it out there. But yeah, I think it's great. I think Zicam is great for fighting off colds. Liquid chlorophyll. Yeah, I could go on and on about that. Anything else? Yeah.
Is what you teach any different than like Renee Graham-Williams, or do you guys have similar methods?
Well, I've never studied with Renee, but I have had students that studied with her and with me, and I have a student right now who sees me every week and every few months goes to see Renee. From what I know, our technique is fairly similar. That's as good as I can say. I don't think it's really dissimilar. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
I have a quick question for you. For those that are on radio tour, 6 o'clock in the morning, a lot of people forget to warm up if they're going to be talking a lot that day. What time should they wake up if they're going to have to get in the car at 5? Is it the 12 minutes? Give yourself the 12 minutes, or what would you suggest for that?
I would get up, get in the shower, warm up in the shower with the steam blasting, and 12 minutes might do it. If you are you saying that they would be singing at this 6 a.m.?
No, if they have a smart manager, the manager will not let them sing.
Yeah.
And if they're a smart radio guy, you don't want to hear somebody sing at 6
Right.
o'clock in the morning. So, but they're going to be talking a lot.
Yes,
They
so
take a lot
here's
of-
what you do. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I worked with somebody last year, a touring singer-songwriter, who he had a great warm-up and a great regimen, and he was doing great when he sang. He was blowing his voice out all the time at meet and greets. And so we had to work, all we did was work on his speaking voice. So the thing, and back to the old resonance thing, you hum and then you talk. So, my name is Susan. I'm going to go talk on this radio show. Everyone's going to love me. Now, notice I'm humming and then I'm talking. I'm trying to get resonance into speaking, but I'm also being very sing-songy to cover some range, and I'm talking kind of stupid, like I'm talking to a 6-month-old, because it's much more relaxed to talk like this than to talk normally, and that's a great way to warm up the voice before you get on it.
Thank you so much. Put your hands together for Susan. Susan Anders, ANDERS.com. In a second, before you leave, I'm going to have the iPad out where you guys can get on what I like to call the 2 old hippies list, and I will